Good morning, afternoon, everybody. Got a little short notice threw a show together real quick. Kyle gave me the word that he had the time, and I had to make sure I had it for him. It's been a specifically crazy week, I'm assuming for Mr. Ward, because of the Board of Health thing, which we will talk about at some level. I don't want to spend the whole show on it because there's other things in the world going on. This, for lack of a better word, that ship has sailed, so we don't need to beat a dead horse, or however many ways you want to make a euphemism for that or whatever. We are almost in agreement at gmail.com. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Our website is up and running. It is almostinagreement.com. Get on there to get any episodes. The whole back catalog is getting worked in. It's not all the way there yet. But I got that. Got some shows. Matt Shear's coming in this weekend. I'm trying to get some of the Compass guys to do a show with me as well. And then I'm trying to get Spengler in on Monday, among other things. So we're going to keep pushing through here, and we're going to learn and find out new and exciting things every day. But on that, let's get started with Mr. Ward. Kyle, thank you so much for working in the time. I know it's been extra heavy for you as of late.
Thank you.
I've been, you were, I think, our third interview once we started doing this thing.
I think so, yeah. I was an early adapter.
Yeah, and so, and I appreciate that, especially statistically so far, the Democrats locally have been a lot more forthcoming in being part of this than the Republicans have. I don't know what the reasoning behind that is, but that just seems to be the way it is. So, all right, let's just get started and try to get this part out of the way. I don't want to spend the whole show on that, but we have the Board of Health mess. I was thinking about it at length after we discussed getting you on here about how to kind of approach this topic. And I mean, we've been over it before on previous episodes, but I think what makes most sense to me is to let's start at the beginning.
Sure.
All right, so pandemic hits, you're in primary.
Pandemic hits, I win my primary, and then about a week or 2 weeks after I win my primary, we go to a complete shutdown.
Okay.
So, and at that point, it's been a minute since I've seen you, so I guess we got to catch up on a bunch of things. At that point, nothing really happens in politics. Nothing really happens in the world for a good 30 days plus. And then I think probably in May, June, we start getting back out there and seeing people and meeting with people and fundraising and getting back to campaigning. And then in August, we won the election. July. Jeez, I can't even get my dates straight anymore. I think it was July.
Right. And then take office in August.
And then took office September 1, we take office. So, beginning of the fiscal year. So, yeah, which was not a typical, everything was typical up to the primary part. So, and I was a newcomer and an outsider, and nobody knew who I was, and I wasn't supposed to win kind of thing. And
right. We talked about that. Yeah.
Won in a landslide, which was nice. And
okay. And so, in the tail end of campaigning and win the election, between the winning of the election and the taking the seat thing, is that where the conversation for you started? I guess that's the question I guess I'm getting at is
sure.
how did we get from, the world that we were all living in, you're taking your seat or you've been elected or you're at the tail end of wherever that was over the summer, late summer, to this is an agenda item that I want to put on because I think it's something that needs to be discussed? Sure.
So I think the census from everybody was there's a lot of beating around the bush on it, and nobody really wanted to go at it. And I think there's a lot of conversations in September and October. And I think in October, one of the things we were talking about, with the mayor's office and everybody else, that there's a possibility that the mayor might be put into the position to make the decisions. So we decided to make the Health and Economics Board at that point in time. Since then, we've created it, we've staffed it with volunteers, and we've actually asked them to look into our poverty issues that we have in parts of the city and our homeless issues, which of course doesn't get a lot of publicity because that doesn't sell headlines. The board stuff sells headlines. So that took effect, and then I think it was November when the Board of Health decided to put more restrictions on businesses and individual freedoms and stuff like that. So I consider myself a constitutional conservative. So for me, I think it was kind of like the last straw. And so I was talking to everybody. I was like, what are we thinking about this? And, should I bring it up? And then in December, the board had on their agenda to take over the surrounding counties' health departments and put restrictions on the surrounding counties potentially.
Right.
And I think that's when the huge uproar from the right, at least, was, talk about overstepping boundaries. And then I got calls from other county mayors and other county officials and, other citizens in other counties surrounding us saying, like, hey, you can't let this happen. So I think that's when everything kind of like,
All right, so I guess for clarification's sake, this wasn't you decided on a whim that this is what you wanted to do, that this was
there's a lot building up to this.
Right. There's a lot building up to it, and there were a lot of people, not just in county, but in region, that were coming to you as a member of the commission on this particular item.
Yeah. And I get it that newspapers and, TV and everybody has to sell headlines and stuff like that. I've actually...
They're really kick-ass at taking really unflattering photos.
Everybody gave me comments about that one. It's like, this is the best photo they could give you. Like, I guess so.
Well, when they want you to look sad,
when they want
stupid,
you to look sad and stupid, that's that's the thing to do. And I'm one that I wear a mask. Like, people have seen me out and about in it. Like, especially if there's older people around.
Okay, I'm gonna interrupt. I apologize, but that's one of the things to me that.
They try to make that
right, but that's the thing. It's like, I haven't seen any conversation about what the mayor or the commission would do with the authority wielding against on some of these issues as lockdowns and mass mandates and stuff like that. There's been no conversation about, hi, Commissioner, if the Board of Health is dissolved as intended with this item, and it falls into the mayor's hand or it falls into the commission's hand, what do you guys plan to do with it? There's been none of that conversation, and so it's all just based on the assumption of, well, they want to get rid of it because they want to go 100% against it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's true or not, but to me, if we're going to go out and try to call the commission killers by what they're doing right now, then we're missing some of the greater picture here in the conversation, and that's what frustrates me about it. Trying to watch it show it. It's because it's not out of the realm of possibility that this thing goes through. Again, there's a whole other legal thing that I don't even remotely understand about where the authority the Board of Health came from originally, which and like what exactly this resolution actually does once it takes effect. That's a whole separate conversation that I don't understand, and I don't have enough lawyers on the show to help me with it. But there's no conversation about, well, if you have the authority, what are you going to do with it? It's just assumed that since you don't like this body having the authority, you're opposed to what they're doing.
Exactly, yeah. So everybody was like, oh, it's anti-mask. And I don't know if that was part of the people that showed up that were saying that, and then they just automatically projected that onto the commission.
Well, because in fairness, the people that are legitimately anti-maskers are on board with this this resolution, and so just because some of the following is part of a group doesn't mean that the leadership of it has anything to do with the groups following it.
Yeah, my perspective is more pro-business and pro-civil liberties. It wasn't ever anti-mask for me. So I don't think government should ever be in the position to take away your ability to legally provide for your family and to limit your job and your income.
So on that, have you gotten the shot?
No, I have not yet.
Okay, I haven't either, but I'm not allowed to yet.
I'm 35. So,
right, I'm not allowed to yet either, and that's one of the things. Again, on that whole idea that there's some person out there in the state or in the Board of Health or whatever, they get to make the decision on when I'm allowed to be safe in the community and stuff like that. That's a whole separate other philosophical issue that I have as well. But yeah, sorry, I interrupted.
No, you're fine. I mean, so for me, it was, and that's the thing, like, the media never asks you, like, hey, like, where do you actually stand on all this stuff? They just print the headline. They don't care. Like, then they want you to comment on the headline they're going to print. Right,
because even back where back what we were just talking about is that, if we had a good solid media, somebody should be writing the story of, because I had Larson in here and we talked about it, and he's like, I'm not sure we have the authority to do this.
Yeah.
But we're doing it anyway, and it's like, well, one, I would assume the law director, because that's supposed to be what he does, should be able to help clarify this issue, which I, again, understand that's a muddy part. But nobody at the media has run the story of, this is what the commission's trying to do, and this is how this breaks down.
Yeah.
Like nobody is actually breaking it down into okay, the commission has the authority to do this part, to change it from a board to just the whatever, or all the little nuances that go on in this story aren't bothered with by anybody. It's just like you said, it's just, Kyle Ward's trying to kill Knox County residents by killing the commission, and it's like that's not factual.
During this whole thing, like nothing was no restrictions were reduced during this whole battle, right?
Right.
And even now, when it gets switched over to Dr. B,
probably nothing's
going to change.
Right.
So like everybody's making this huge deal out of, this is going to, it's not. Like Dr. B even stood up there on record and said, "I'm not going to change anything. I'm just going to hold the same thing." And I told her, like, that's her job. I'm not a medical professional at all. I never pretended to be. I just think the right person should be making it, who's accountable to an elected official, where the Board of Health was not accountable to any elected officials or anybody, just themselves.
Right, because that was a question in one of the I always say the word wrong, the Compass colloquially. If you are curious what I'm talking about, you need to be a subscriber to the Compass. So go subscribe to the Compass.
They do a great job over there.
And they have a Facebook group, and there's been a lot of conversation in the Facebook group about one item in particular, which we'll save for later. Maybe we might just avoid it altogether because crazy people exist, and you have to deal with them, and that's why social media is fun, because you get to see crazy people acting crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway. So there's I lost my train of thought. See, crazy people influencing my line of questioning, but damn it, I totally lost it.
It's okay.
Backing it up.
We can come back to it.
I've been thinking about all day what I wanted to talk about, and I know this was one of them. Anyway, the shit.
The board. So I'll grab for me.
Not a professional. If you haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah. So we go through this whole. It's a political show, to be honest with you. Like everybody knew it was going to happen. And now it's happened, and nothing has changed. Literally from Monday to today.
Right. When does it officially take effect?
I think it officially takes effect in 2 weeks. I think it's 15 days.
Okay.
So Dr. B will, I would imagine, uphold everything that's already being done.
Right.
It would be very surprising to me that if she wouldn't.
Oh, that's what it was. Sorry. So that reminded me. Okay. So yeah,
Okay.
one of the conversations was, how does the Board of Health get seated? Like, who are these people? Who puts
Sure.
them there? Because you're saying, Dr. B is responsible to and appointed by the mayor. So there is some line of accountability when it comes to us, the constituency, to this individual.
And she's the one with the experts.
Right.
Like, she has all the all the experts work for her. Like, she's the one telling the Board of Health all the information.
Right. And so the Board of Health is obviously
There's some great doctors. I mean, let me make this statement so I can. There's great people on the Board of Health, but I don't go to the heart surgeon when I have an upset stomach.
Right.
And I don't go to my veterinarian or my dentist to get medical advice for my body.
Right.
So.
Right, which that was the subset of this of this ordinance, is to add a specifically pandemic style body to help go through to be more specific to what's going on.
There was the Health and Economics Committee, we thought would be a possibility being a better, well-rounded committee. That was one thought process at one point in time, maybe replacing them, but we ended up saying, like, hey, we're just going to keep them the way they are, because before this, they would only meet once or twice a year, go over the budget, and then that was it. That was all the Board of Health used to do.
Right.
So, and they unfortunately got put in this position, which wasn't their fault. Like, I've got no ill will against the Board of Health itself. It's just they shouldn't be in this position. It should be an elected official or somebody working for the elected official making these decisions, especially when you have criminal repercussions to breaking rules that they're making. That's what we kind of fought against England for, so we can have representative government instead of.
I agree, and that's something that I'm on. I agree with on the philosophical level on that. But to go back to the question that I forgot and now I've remembered is that there's Dr. O'Brien. It's the only one that's coming off the top of my head, other than the community rep that I failed to take that seat.
Yeah.
How? Because we all know that one because we all went through it. I did at least.
Yeah.
I mean, how are these other people assigned
they're
to
all
that?
They're just appointed.
They're just appointments like similar to one that happened.
Yeah, I mean, we have plenty of appointments.
Yeah, I went through with the commission secretary and got a list of everything the county. Yeah. It's a pretty obnoxiously long list.
Yes, we appoint a lot of people, a lot of different positions.
I'm still trying to figure out how many. I can't count that high. I'm not that smart. There's a lot. The library and there's a utility one that apparently doesn't do anything. I've had a number of people have had this issue. All right. So, in the timeline, so we got it going. It hits the thing. It gets first reading in December. Mm-hmm. Second reading in January. It gets postponed 2 months because this is another specific one that I was hearing complaints about in the Facebook group that I wasn't understanding because it was delayed 2 months, which would be...
It was delayed 90 days.
Oh, so it's supposed to be 3 months, and so we ended up pulling it out early.
And then we pulled it in early, yeah.
Okay. Well, what was the genesis of that? Like, how does that work?
So we actually get a lot of data, and I feel like, unfortunately, that we get more data sometimes than the general public does. So for all the experts, were projecting our spike to be in December. This isn't like anything we didn't know that was going to happen. And then the projection was spike in December and then tail off after that. So the thought process on our part was, we've gotten to this point where we have the overreaching and everything else going on, and the closing of businesses. If we pass this, in January, then we'll everything will be sliding down. So I came out, I think, a week or two beforehand, and I said publicly, like, I do not think that this will pass in January. I think this will be postponed, to a later date. And I think the process, the thought process there was, we had the stuff that happened at Capitol Hill. We had the death threats that went on with commission. We had death threatened on the county health building and the city mayor's house.
And that dude was like from Sevierville or something.
Yeah. Too. So we had all this, we had this, the storm at Capitol Hill, I think I said that as well. So we had all these things going on, and it was just very volatile, and everything was really high. And, I'm not an emotional person. I usually think very like logical, practical. So I kind of talked to other leaders and said, this might like we might not be at the best place, from a mental state to do this, because if we don't want to have an explosion, right. So let's postpone this, let everybody calm down a little bit, and then we'll get it done then. So that's kind of what you saw play out was, I came out 2 weeks beforehand, I think, and I said publicly, like, I don't think this is going to pass, and this is going to postpone, kind of, letting everybody know, hey, this is what's probably going to happen. And then, sure enough, the vote, goes 5-6. Would I like to see it pass at that point in time? Me personally, probably this way.
I mean, I was in the same boat. I kind of wanted it to be like, all right, this has been a thing, and it's a big deal. But if we're looking at it on the pure politics of how this is going to work, this is going to pass.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody thought it wasn't, and so now all we did was add 60 more days instead of 90 more days of conversation and airtime on it.
Yeah.
Than either conversation and airtime on the repercussions of it, or the 10,000 other things that's going on locally. Correct. That we're not talking about because we're still talking about the Board of Health situation.
Correct. So, we saw everything was trending down in January, trended down further in February. We're here at the end of March. It's trending down even further. So, and everybody...
Now we're going to get that Easter spike. Everybody's got that Easter spike.
Right.
I mean, in fairness...
you just had spring break, so people are going to have a spike after spring break.
Right, and the theoretical on it to me, it makes sense because my parents have been very hands-off. They've been, phone calls and... talking like I'm in the house leaning out the window so my mom can talk to me from my own front yard.
Yeah.
Because that's how my mom wanted to treat it, and that's how that's fine.
And you just gotta respect what people want. If they want you to wear a mask.
She is making me do Easter with her. There's no question. We were having Easter dinner, which I have no issues with.
But you have the individual choice and freedom to make that, right? And so does she. And that's all I think.
And I think that's one of the things too that despite this, there's this assumption that everybody's an asshole.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of assholes out there, don't get me wrong, but there's this assumption that everybody's an asshole, and that at 2 weeks from now, whenever this officially hits, that all the masks are off and all the businesses are going to say everybody's in, and the movie theaters are going to open back up, and we're going to have 500 people jammed in a movie theater, and all of a sudden our case count's going to fly right back up. The people that aren't wearing masks are going to continue to not wear masks. The people that are wearing masks are likely to continue wearing masks. The businesses that are enforcing the mask mandate inside their business are going to continue to enforce the mask mandate with or without the official mandate in place. They have the autonomy to do that.
Correct.
And it should be okay. Because that's one of the ones that was statewide that was pissing me off. I can't remember who it was in the state that passed one that was trying to say that a business can't exclude somebody.
No, they have
for wearing a mask.
It's a private business,
right? And
you as a private business have the right to do when it comes down to like your civil rights and your civil liberties, private businesses can say yes and no to anybody.
You got to have a mountain of data to take away. That's what the rules should be. You need to have a mountain of, if we don't take this right away for a period of time, this will happen, and it has to be a true statement. And this one in particular, we don't have the data, didn't exist to make that second part a true statement.
Yeah.
If we're gonna take things away, you better be right, and you can't be right. You just couldn't be right in this situation because we didn't know any better.
Yeah, it's anybody can make an argument from data at this point, right? Because you have the guys on the right saying, "Hey, the data shows this," and you got the guys on the left saying, "Oh no, the data shows this," and you have health experts on both sides, you have lawyers on both sides. So I think it comes down to like nobody knows, or we don't understand this 100%. I think everybody can agree on that to some degree. So basically, we get through that point, we postpone it. I feel like I have a good emotional intelligence, kind of level, and kind of read the room in March, and I think it was just the time to let's get this forward and just get this behind us at this point, and
it's Band-Aid time. Let's rip it off.
Let's because we're at a good spot here locally, numbers wise, and everything else. Everything's down, way down from where we were at a high, and we're going the right direction. And I think everybody's being responsible and trying to do the best they can. But eventually, we can't stay like this forever. We have to move forward. And I think this is part of like I said in the beginning, nothing's going to change, but this is the step to move forward to getting past 2020 and the pandemic and everything else. Like this is, I understand the responses, and we can go into this a little bit. I don't really want to talk about it a lot, but we can go into it a little bit. Like I understand the responses that I get. I understand the death threats. I understand the threats against me. I understand where it's coming from because people are scared. And when people are scared, they get emotional, they make rash decisions, they make, they say things they don't mean. They're scared for their lives, which is the most scariest thing possible. And then on top of that, you've now locked a scared person up in their house for months on end, and they have all this stuff building up, and then they need to release it, right? They have all this energy. They say the best thing for your dog to do or for people to do is go exercise, right? And because you get all that energy out, and then after I take my dog for a walk, he wants to take a sleep, and after I go work out, I'm de-stressed and I'm more calm. And unfortunately, we just have kind of people have self-caged themselves up, and we're social creatures. They've distanced themselves from people, so they needed an outlet to blow their steam off on, and they needed to blame somebody for their problems. And I'm okay with if you gotta blame me, that it's all my fault, even though everything that I've done to this point hasn't changed anything that has happened on a rules basis. We still have the same rules now that we've had the whole entire time, if not more strict, and I don't see Dr. Buchanan changing it. But the left in particular
there's been
sees me as the bad guy, and I'm okay if I'm the guy that needs to be the bad guy, and you need to let that out and yell at me and post stuff about me. I've got broad shoulders. I can take that. I just would ask people to not make threats against me or any of my family, or anybody in particular. Because it should never result to that.
It's fully natural. I mean, I don't want to get into a big religious part of the conversation, but like there's an innate need by people to be able to point at a cause, point at a reason. And this virus is crazy. We don't know how it works. We still don't know how it works. We still don't know how we're going to fully get out of this and move on and get back to quote normal, which will never actually happen. But we need a villain, because the virus itself isn't a functional villain. Like we need to say somebody. We say it's that thing's fault. It's Trump did, it's China's fault, which whatever, it might have been a little bit, but it's still, regardless of how it started and who did what or whatever, we have an innate need to find a bad guy and make it that thing's fault. And unfortunately that ended up being you and locally.
It's funny, like once Trump was out of the picture, like the amount of like hate that we got like skyrocketed, because you couldn't hate on him. You couldn't hate on him anymore. So now we need somebody else to hate on. So all right, we're gonna go for these people over there. So I understand it's disappointing. At the end of the day, like I really wish people. I love talking to people who have a different opinion than me, because it makes me think. It makes me broaden my, my perspective and everything. So, at the end of the day, in my mind, this is really a simple thing. Is I don't think unelected people should be passing restrictions on businesses and private citizens and passing things that you could have criminal repercussions for. Just in my mind, and I know people will disagree. It wasn't right, and that's to be honest, that's where this solely came from. At the end of the day, what really sparked it off for me big was the overreaching into the other counties. Like now
Right.
they're trying to control this county, the other county.
All right, I want to back up a second because we were talking about how the Board of Health was filled, and those are appointments. What is the process for changing appointments? Or are they in there until they decide they don't want to do it
They have
anymore?
terms. Everybody.
But I'm just saying, like right now, it's like not factual, but Dr. O'Brien goes off his rocker and starts doing crazy shit.
Sure.
And the commission's like, we need to get O'Brien needs to come off the Board of Health. There's something wrong. He's gone full QAnon or something stupid. It doesn't matter. It's not a fact. I'm not saying this as a fact, people. It's a hypothetical. What the process is for a recall, because like for you, for example, which I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure that I meant to ask Chris Davis when he was here earlier about it. Because there's a process for recalling you as an elected official. Yes. Is there a process to recall a Board of Health official?
I would have to ask the law department about that. I don't know enough about those kinds of things. I would assume there's something in there where if you cross a line of some degree that we have the authority to remove you. Because
that's one of the issues. Again, one of the arguments being like, well, they're appointed by elected bodies, so indirectly they are. They do have a level of responsibility to the public because they're appointed. But if that recall process is super hard and complicated, that's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of that. No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, I'll see if I can't get the law director to explain that to me. I doubt it, but
yeah, I think
apparently I'm willing to email anybody and everybody.
Sure.
So.
Well, don't forget, like, the Board of Health didn't disappear. Like, they're still there. They're still going to be there in 15 days. They're going to advise Dr. Buchanan. They can still meet just as much, more often or less often. Like, it's
right, but it solely becomes Buchanan's responsibility instead of
Buchanan's decision.
Right.
And with them informing her and giving her advice, which was the role that she was in before. Remember, like, that's the role they were in beforehand.
All right, and again, another point that I'm trying to get a clarification on is...
It was an interpretation.
Is this authority emergency-based, or is it all the time?
You're going to have to talk to lawyers about all this. From my limited understanding, it's, and I think it was June, our old law director made an interpretation, and we're the only county in the whole entire state that operates this way. The only county that had a Board of Health with this kind of power. So... he made an interpretation, and we went with that interpretation, and now this is where we're at. So I don't want to really.
But it has nothing to do with whether or not we're in a state of emergency.
I don't know. I think if we're not in a state of emergency, some of the powers are reduced, from my understanding. But again, I'm not a lawyer, so I think if we do leave the state of emergency, some of the powers are reduced. But I don't think all the powers would be gone. I think the Board of Health would still have the ability to pass laws, basically,
right.
and with restrictions. So that was kind of like the big thing was, even after we're past this body still has more power than
Then I think people realize that.
Than what they
right.
So they could rule on a whole bunch of things, And
because again, that's one of the things I've been confused about, because to me, at what point does although we are in a pandemic and it is not a normal time, but at some point there has to be a state of emergency comes to an end.
Yeah.
This is now
Did
life.
you hear what Glenn said 2 weeks ago? It's Mayor Jacobs. Mayor Jacobs said 2 weeks ago, if the stuff at the state level does pass and he is put in charge, that he wants anything that restrictions that he would do or pass has a 30-day sunset, and then would have to be revisited by commission.
Right.
And I think, like, if that was the situation for the Board of Health, like, we would be okay with that. Like, hey, it's for 30 days, and then commission gets the choice, the elected officials gets the choice to then extend it or not to extend it.
Right. Because again, that's one of the things to me. It's like this. There's a difference between an emergency and a new way of life.
Yeah.
And while we're somewhere in between the two, we're not. Yeah. I think there will be a new way of life on the other side of this. That's somewhere between last year's April and full on, 2018 normal life. There's going to be somewhere in between is going to be the new normal. But it can't be an emergency forever, because then it's just life.
Well, and I think that's what from what was told to me, or what was explained to me, was even after the state of emergency goes away, that this board can continue the mandates and everything else forever, kind of thing, you know,
Right.
and could pass more restrictive things. And you know, that just goes back to, like, you can't restrict private businesses, like, in my opinion. Like, it's just not right. You can't just take away people's livelihoods,
right,
like
with no standard
Yeah,
repercussions
and-
like everybody else.
And I'm still, you know, I don't want to get into this debate, but I never saw the proof that, like, you being in a restaurant we didn't have any restaurant spikes, like that wasn't
Right.
any
I remember
of the clusters.
specifically it was the November
Yeah.
Board of Health meeting I was watching, and Dr. O'Brien was talking to.
They're talking about Arizona.
No, who was he?
Which
The guy that owns Aubrey's and stuff. Was,
Oh, yeah.
Was a guest and speaking
Yes.
about it and talking about how this is affecting him and the restaurant
Yeah.
industry as a whole. And O'Brien said point blank, it's like, it's not about you, it's not about your staff,
Yeah.
it's about the people that are coming and meeting in your place.
Yeah.
And so it's literally me and you want to go have lunch.
Yeah.
We share it with each other.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the people in the restaurant. Me and you can go have lunch
Yeah.
here at you know, we can do a show in the studio. We could go have lunch in a park. We could do all that different stuff, and that same vector system is happening. It has nothing to do with the restaurants. Yet the restaurants are the ones that are taking
Getting
the
suffrage.
largest hit
Yeah.
financially out of this situation. All right, done with it. We're done with the Board of Health. I don't want to do anymore. Unless you got something. Unless you really want to finish the thought.
I've always felt like if you should wear a mask if you want to wear a mask. If you don't want to go to restaurants, you shouldn't go to restaurants. If you want to stay in your house, you can stay in your house. I mean, you know, luckily we have technology these
You
days.
should wear a mask even if you don't want to wear a mask,
Yeah.
but you shouldn't go to jail or get a fine
Yeah.
or have a actual punitive damage to go along with it because you choose not to.
Correct.
You should do it because it is the correct thing to do.
It's the good socially accepted thing to do at this point
Right.
in time. Yes. So that's kind of like the ending point that I want to be
Right.
like.
But to have a body that isn't elected, that has
Yeah.
a long process to get between me, the citizen, and them, the body, making this decision on, quote, my behalf, and having zero repercussion from me if I disagree, is the philosophical issue at play here.
Yeah.
And I tend to agree with you on that kind of thing. I'm not as hardcore libertarian as I pretend to be sometimes, but it's definitely, again, like I said, if you've got to be damn sure, if you're going to start encroaching on civil liberties, you've got to be damn sure that your actions are the correct actions for
it's a slippery
everybody.
slope.
Right.
Because if we start going down this path, you know, we asked the question
Right.
earlier, you know, hey, what about sugary drinks? Because you saw New York do that. What about guns? You know, all that kind of stuff. You know, and part of that was political theater to get, you know, the base riled up. Like, this is how bad it could be, guys. Like, you know, this is what they have the power to take away. But, you know, it is that slippery slope. Like, once you start going down this path, like, we had a letter from Dr. O'Brien be like, if you take away the power, I'm going to quit, basically. And I was like, you know, I was really disappointed, I guess, because, you know, it kind of shows like that was the whole point that we're trying to make here, is that if you just are in it for the power, that's not what this is about.
Right.
So, like, you know, that just kind of solidified my decision. Like, yeah, it's probably best to take the power away, because if that's the way you're thinking, the same guy that brought up the fact that they want to take over the control of the surrounding counties, I mean, that's just not. I have an issue with it.
Right. I
And
understand.
obviously,
Right.
like, you know,
Right. You've taken
I think everybody knows that by now.
You've probably knocked off a couple years of your life with the stress that has been this year for you.
Yeah.
All right, so I was thinking about it today because we were getting ready to do this, and I was driving through, and I drove through the flood, or the near flood. It's getting pretty close right now.
It's getting close again, isn't it? We do have pumps out there. We had pumps out there this weekend.
And I've been thinking about that every time I drive through there, that conversation we had about it, because it's one of those, and it's budget talk and all this other kind of stuff, and it's
Yeah.
like, it's not going to do it this year because we have a Band-Aid in place, and so then next year we'll take the Band-Aid off and not actually do the correct fix that's been discussed, and then next year we'll have the flood because we didn't have one this year because the Band-Aid worked.
So right now we're getting the funding. We have $500,000. I've asked for more. I still have not. We have budget season coming up here soon, so I'll see if I get more, and if so, how much. I did talk to the mayor. I talked to the mayor's staff about it numerous times. They are working towards it. They're trying to help out. We had Jim in the first district. Jim Snowden, our head of engineering in the first district, and our roadworks and sewer team, and So we got pumps out there and are lowering the level of Bluegrass Lake currently. So that's good, but like you said, it's a Band-Aid. So the end goal is to get a pump permanently in there so that we don't have this issue every single year, because this is now 3 years where it's either flooded or almost flooded, basically.
Yeah, it's pretty damn close right now. For
yeah,
sure.
and it's affecting, you know, people around there as well. And you have to remember, like, it affects everybody a mile upstream,
right?
You know, plus not just right here, the small, you know, not just the Bluegrass particular area. It has a domino effect,
right? So
we went to the city. The city is kind of what slowed us down, because I think at the county level, everybody's 100% for it and wants to get it done. The city actually owns the piece of property that we need to put the pump on.
Because we have a new flooding area that I was going to bring up on the same road.
Yeah.
Up by my shop at Northshore and Kingston Pike,
yes.
which is probably the same deal. It's a city road.
It gets even more complicated because Northshore is a state-owned road. So we can't do anything about Northshore. But where we need to put the pump, the city actually owns that, because right there on Northshore is actually city area. So we went to the city and said, hey, like, please give us the piece of property so we can build a pump.
Why don't we go to the city and just say, give us that whole section back? Because if you look at the map, it's the dumbest thing ever.
Yes, it's really dumb.
It's just this nice pocket of high income, high tax income area that the city owns out.
You can thank Victor Ashe for annexing that.
And apparently, as I've been told by some of the city people, that game doesn't get to be played anymore. They put some stuff in place to curb that.
Yeah, the state stopped.
I mean, it doesn't matter. It's all going Metro eventually anyway.
Yes. I think even they said, was it like a couple of months ago, they have enough money from their projections to maybe last 3 more years. So, you know, if you're in the city, unfortunately, you're probably going to see a tax increase in the next 2 years just because of poor fiscal management at the city level. They're just going to go into debt here soon. And then go through their
and they're the one
rainy day fund.
They're one of the two that don't know how they're going to pay for their portion of the baseball stadium.
Yeah,
county's got a plan for their portion.
I don't know how the city's going to plan to pay for anything going forward. To be honest, I mean, I know how they're going to do it. They're just going to have to. They're going. I think they put themselves in a corner where they're going to have to raise taxes. I mean, I don't think they're going to have a choice, because it's either go bankrupt or raise taxes within the next. I think within the next 3 years they're going to have to raise taxes. It just, the numbers don't add up where they're going to be able to sustain the direction that they're going in. Anyways, we went to the city, and the city turns around and our flood studies weren't good enough, so they want to go get their own. So now we had to wait for that. So, and now, you know, I think we just got them not too long ago. And they still haven't given us the property, from my understanding, or agreed. They said, you know, we think there's a problem here and we're going to be willing to help, but we're probably just going to give you the property. We're not going to actually help out fiscally.
I'm trying to get Roberto in here. I'll talk to him about it too.
Okay. I mean, and then, you can ask him to return my phone calls too. That'd be great.
Sweet. I love being a conduit for some bitchiness and whatnot.
I'm just teasing. I think him and I missed each other like 10 times. Like, he's called me and I've called him, and we just never, I don't think I've ever talked to the guy. I think we've left voicemail messages for each other, but we never got in touch. So that's just a joke. I didn't mean to think, Roberto. I'm sorry.
I will call him out for you.
Well, I mean, obviously I don't answer any of my emails either. I think you've seen that in the news too. So, I mean, I think I had 672 on Monday alone. So, yes, I did not get to every single body's email. I apologize for the ones I did not get to.
I had to run into you in person at the GOP restructuring thing to get you to get back here. So,
I wish I could answer every phone call, every email.
The question, I guess, the real question is, because it's not a good question for you since you're a freshman in this game.
Yeah.
The real question is, when things go back to normal, if that gets back down to a manageable level, or if this is something that needs to have a conversation about whether or not.
Well,
you know,
full time or not full time. Is that where you're going with this?
Maybe full time or not full time, or at least a dedicated staff to do certain parts of the job to assist with something. Whether because I mean, hell, like you get like a Massey, she's got like 6 staff members full time that work
just
for her,
answer phone calls and emails and letters all day,
which is handy because I email all the time and start fights and get her to come on the show, and it's good stuff.
I mean, we can go into that conversation a little bit. It just depends on. There's a reason why majority of the commissioners are retired, because it's a full-time job to do that. I run 4 companies, and then I do commission. That's like so I've got 5 jobs in theory.
All right, if we're bragging, I run 3 companies and a podcast and have a day job.
Yeah.
All right, you win. Fine.
It's a lot, right?
Yeah.
But like today, like you and I had to be just passing at the right time just to get this done, just because how busy. And it's not an excuse. Like, it is my job to answer emails and phone calls. It's just with the volume. So during like February, when there was nothing going on and nobody had talked about the Board of Health, I was able to get back to everybody basically. But right now when you get 600-700, it's impossible for me to physically answer that many emails and return that many phone calls. So, I do apologize. I wish I did better. I haven't. I'm going to try to do better going forward. But that's, that's on me. At the end of the day, there's just no excuses for it. I just haven't been able to keep up basically. So, but we're, now that we're past the Board of Health stuff, hopefully, it'll be much more of a manageable situation. But to go into the full-time versus part-time, I think, after all the taxes and everything, I think it's like $1,000 a month you make doing this, which isn't a lot of money. Well, you shouldn't be doing this for the money anyways, in my opinion. But if you want better candidates and a different spread of age and everything else, if it was a full-time job with a decent paycheck, you'd probably be able to recruit better candidates to run for, or not, I shouldn't say better. You would be able to recruit a more
dedicated,
more variety. I wish, I'm jealous of some of the guys that are retired that serve with me. They're awesome and they're able to go to every ribbon cutting and everything. It's just not physically possible for me to do it. And I've talked to my campaign manager about it. It's like, I wish I could do these things. It's not possible having a young family and everything else going on. So it would be different. I mean, for me, it wouldn't, because I'm my own boss. I'm my own company. I don't know if I would have done the job if I had to do it if I had to do it full time.
Right.
So there's that vice versa of like, all right, you miss out on people like me that, well, for some people that might be great,
right?
But for like my my core, my base, like, I might not be able. I probably wouldn't have run because.
It's fiscally and functionally irresponsible for your other work.
Yeah, to quit.
It. Basically,
maybe I would do it when I'm retired. So, but yeah, I mean, that's something to look into. But as a fiscal conservative, like, I'm glad that we don't get paid. Basically, I'm glad we don't get paid a lot of money, because I don't want to waste money on me. Like, that's fair. Yeah. So, but that's me. I'm sure there's some people on there that would love to get paid a lot more.
Right.
But
so
I'm not one of them.
So you brought a budget, and it's getting into budget season or whatever.
It is getting into budget season.
Again, you're a fresher to this, so you're new at it. So this is your first budget season.
I'm excited. I watched last year, so I got an idea.
So you got a little bit of insight on it then, more than me at least.
A little bit.
So. Because I've been digging more into school board than anything else as far as budget conversations go. Each department presents a budget, and then the mayor puts it together
and presents
a full budget, and then the commission gets to go over it. So, is it an all or nothing style vote, or is it something that you guys get to make? We can make tweak a line item adjustments, and then
so we can't touch schools basically.
Well,
that's a whole nother animal. I try to stay in my lane, and schools is not my lane. I let the Board of Ed and those guys take care of that stuff. So for us, we're looking at so everything that falls underneath the mayor, the sheriff's department, clerk's office, is all those different budgets, all the and then basically approving or saying, hey, this needs to be adjusted or this needs to be adjusted, that kind of stuff. So we're very blessed. We're a very well-run county. Mayor Jacobs does a great job, and his team does a great job. So we're going to be in the black, and we're probably going to be making $20 million plus in net revenue.
Yeah, sales tax has been through the roof. Considering
it's been great.
I've heard that from a number of different sources. Because again, one of the things to me, it gets to the greater philosophical conversation about what a government is and should be doing. Because I hear the phrase all too often of, we haven't raised property taxes in the county in like 20 years. Functionally, it has raised, but counter to inflation essentially, or something like that. But it hasn't, because the effective tax rate for landowners in the county is not allowed to go up against what the assessed value is. So essentially the taxes haven't gone up in a period of time, and I keep hearing that conversation, and it's like, well, just because it hasn't been done, that doesn't mean it needs to be done. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that confuses me about that statement. But especially with the school thing, and this is what I get really lost on trying to understand the school budget and how much the county pays into the school budget, even though functionally it's a state thing and the state should be paying for it. And so, like, I'm a parent. I've got kids in the school system. I would like the school system to be better than it is.
Sure.
But it's a conversation of where the responsibility lies, which it shouldn't theoretically lie within the county, but it does, because I think the county pays 55% of the school's annual budget.
Correct. So we're a donor state, a donor county. So we donate. Right. So our sales tax, I think it's like 71% of our sales tax goes towards schools, and so it goes to the state and then it comes back. Right.
Ron put up the easiest stat I think to follow that is Knox County Schools has 6% of the K through 12 students in the state, and the state pays 4.5%.
Yeah, exactly.
Of the total school board budget, or of the total school budget for the state, they pay 4.5% back into Knox County Schools.
Correct.
So we have 1.5% of $1 billion that we're having to pay, air quotes, out of pocket locally in locally funded taxes, and so.
Which is a lot of money. It's 500 million, right? Something like 550 million.
Yeah. It's like 1.5% doesn't sound like much until you realize how big the total budget is.
Yeah, we're $850-900 million budget, I think, right?
Because school board is about $600 million total budget.
Which is that's a lot of money.
Right. And that's one of the things, and this is a government thing in general. Anytime we talk about government and budgets and stuff like that, it's like I can never quite get a good analogy for why and what the money is. Like it's like I don't know how much it costs to repave a road or to build a new road or to build a new bridge or something like that. And so like it's just like that's just one of those things I can't figure out how to rationalize. And I think that's one of the reasons why budgets are so confusing to everybody, because most people, how much does it cost to build a bridge?
Millions.
How many millions of dollars? It's like, really? Does it cost that much?
It depends on what bridge and how the bridge spans and all these different things.
Right, and then how many studies we did to put it in.
How many studies we did,
like
and the traffic flows and the environmental. It's a little. It's not. I wish it was simpler, but it never is. This budget is going to be weird, and I'll explain what I mean by weird. So we just got 90 to 94 million from the state, and from the federal government gave it to the state, and the state gave it to us for this last
obligated through the COVID-19.
But we don't know exactly what we can do with it yet, and we know there's some restrictions, but we're not really 100% sure, and we're asking for guidance, and we haven't really got the guidance yet. Well, we're now talking about that was 1.9, and now we're talking about passing a $3 trillion infrastructure deal. So then we're going to get that in here as well. So if you look at what we got for 1.9, you're talking about we're going to get around 150 million to maybe $200 million in infrastructure
so we're talking about
money.
250 total.
We're talking about $300 million in extra money to throw around. So, but we don't know what we're going to get, A, and then we don't know what we can exactly spend it on yet, B.
Right.
So we're in like this weird position where it's like, all right, we have extra money from this year, which is great, so we can, hopefully give some raises and put some money towards different things. But we might have this huge influx to do, maybe we can pay off some of the infrastructure stuff we want to do, or pay for the infrastructure stuff we want to do. Or maybe we can pay off some of the schools, so all that money's not going, it can be used in the budget for different things.
Right. So
we're in a weird kind of position, which might be a really good position, where we're going to have this extra cash where we can, spend it and get some things knocked out we want to get out. There's two sides of me. Like at a local level, I'm like, cool, we get all this federal dollars in here so we can spend on stuff. But the fiscal conservative me is like, I don't know where we're getting all this money from. We're going to be.
It's just poofed out of the sky.
We're just creating funny money, and then it devalues our dollar, and then so our buying power on a global level is even less. And
but it puts us in a weird spot of
economics of it.
Right, the total economics is a big weird, but it definitely puts it in a weird spot.
Are we heading towards another bubble burst now because of all this a year from here?
Right, but
there's a lot of questions.
The county's in a spot where, if we don't spend it, it doesn't make a difference. It's been created regardless, so we need to spend it.
Well, that's the other question.
We need a new mental health facility.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
A big fucking one, and maybe our Facebook friend can get on there.
We can. Yeah,
I'll make jokes.
You can do it. I'm not going near any of it. But yeah, yes, we definitely need a mental health facility. I think everybody agrees about with that. Glenn and I actually talked about. Sorry, Mayor Jacobs and I actually talked about that a couple weeks ago. I hopefully we can utilize some of this money towards things of that nature. So it will be weird. It'll be interesting. You know, it's going to be a fun ride.
Right. So what needs to happen is we need to just do a normal budget. Just actively
so this year, we're going to do a
budget.
normal budget, and then whatever extra we get, we'll use that towards paying things off and creating
and
new
if it can buy
projects.
if it can buy something off that's in the normal budget, then that becomes surplus that we can do whatever we want with.
Exactly.
And if it can be used by definition for things, then we use it for those things. That makes sense to me.
Here's a wild idea. Like, we don't have clarification yet, but what happens if we're allowed to just keep it and we use the interest on it? Because you're talking about millions of dollars in interest on $250,000, and now you just created a whole new fund to continually have more. So there's a lot of different ways you can approach it, a lot of different ways you can utilize the money, but we don't know how we can use the money yet because the federal government hasn't really given us the details yet.
Right, similar to that first PPP loan that is just like, take it and we'll figure out what you have to do with it later.
I think we get like 40-something million up front for this, and then we're going to hold it and we don't know what we're going to do with it yet because we don't have the guidance to like, all right, buy PPP. All right, well, we just bought a whole bunch this last year. We can refund ourselves for some of the stuff we bought, but you can only buy so much PPP.
Right.
You can't buy $42 million of PPP. Like, we're going to have that for eons. PPE, whatever. Sorry,
Yeah.
PPP.
I said
the
PPP
PPP loan. Yeah,
on
sorry,
the
the
loan,
PPP loan. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so there's, I mean, it's kind of, we're in a weird spot. That's the best way for me to describe it.
Let's buy $40 million of ventilators that'll go bad in a couple of years because they're not being maintained properly.
Yeah,
and then we can just.
And they're just gonna get dry rot and crack. Yeah. So I don't. Yeah. So this year's budget is gonna be. We're gonna pass a regular budget. We're gonna hopefully give some raises here and there, and we're gonna wait to get some more guidance from the federal government on what we can actually do with all this extra money that's getting injected in, which I'm excited about because I'm hoping that they give us enough leeway where we can really spend it on some great things here locally.
Like?
So I don't want to take any thunder away from the big guy, but we're gonna I don't know if I'm allowed to say this yet or not, but we're gonna have a trade school hopefully being announced or opening. We're hopefully going to work towards mental health facilities.
To be a state or be
infrastructure. I don't know the details, so don't ask me.
Be a community college or some sort.
I can't comment. I'm just saying these are the kind of things
breaking news, bitches.
No breaking news. So this is just these are things that we've talked about. These aren't things that are actually coming. These are things we've talked about. So we don't, it's hard to say until we get a lot more details. But I would like, let me rephrase that previous. So let's delete that previous statement. I would like to see things along the lines of a trade school coming, mental health facilities coming, infrastructure. Infrastructure is huge. Hardin Valley needs some infrastructure. North Knoxville, Carnes, Powell, Halls needs some infrastructure. South Knoxville. I mean, everybody. I mean, I would love. I reached out to Senator Massey the other day. Like, I would love to see a turn lane on North Shore. I don't need to be a 4 or 5 lane highway, but if we could at least have a turn lane, that would be, I think, reduce a lot of the accidents and a lot of the issues we have.
North Shore is problematic in that there's not a lot of room to go wider, and
no, there's not. That's why I think a turn lanes is about the best we're going to get out of it. And and also with school traffic in the morning, it's pretty rough.
Yeah, I do. Yesterday there was a power line down.
That was all day long.
Turn back around and come back the
you and I now live. I live like 600 yards that way from you now.
So does your yard ever dry out?
I don't know because since I moved in 2 weeks ago, it hasn't stopped raining. So as of this point, no, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't exactly dry out.
My yard will never dry out. Okay, so since we're talking about my yard and my plumbing issues, abstractly. Because I talked to you about it as a constituent about my KUB issue.
Yeah.
And as my other one of my stores is up on the north side of town, and they're Hallsdale. It's a Hallsdale customer there, and so I have a lot of my customers that come into the store, and I like to gripe about Hallsdale. And we do have a utilities oversight body of some sort that's in the county. What do we do about this? Like, because it seems to be, my KUB issue is that I have to pay for the privilege of paying for the service. And that's my problem with it. Like, I akin it to if you had to go to the DMV to get your license renewed or whatever, and you have to pay a cover charge to get in the door and then wait forever and then pay for the service you actually need while you're there. That's kind of what KUB is doing to me. I understand there's cost involved in what they're doing, but my issue here is that if it's a utility, that I don't feel like that's appropriate. And then the Hallsdale issue being that for all accounts of people that I talk to, it's a terribly poorly run or inefficient, or there's some major infrastructure problem that they are having that they can't put their product out at a reasonable price. And I have a couple of people that are very active in trying to fight this situation, and that, it's a utility. The issue with the utility is I don't have an option. I have KUB water here. That's all I get.
That's all you get.
If I want to call First Utility District or Lenore City, which is not that far away, that's not an option.
Yeah. I live 600 yards away from you, and I actually have the first district for water.
Right. Maybe I'll call them and see if they can run.
See if they run the pipe up a little bit further.
Here. It might be the same process as KUB just to get it here. Anyway, but that's the point of utilities, is that to have multiple companies running water lines, running power lines, running all that stuff would be burdensome to the community. And so
Correct.
we as a greater community allow the monopolistic style of business,
yes,
with the caveat that they get oversight, but it doesn't seem like the oversight is happening. What's the process here? I'm not asking you to answer the question or to fix the problem. I'm asking you what the process is, because I don't. Again, we talk about media issues, and I've seen a few stories here and there where they make mention. The headline is overpriced water or something like that, but the story usually falls apart pretty quick, and there's no follow up to all these residents. They're paying ungodly sums for their water, and it's gross water at that don't seem to have any real recourse to the situation.
Sure. So there's an appointed body over the utility boards. Each utility board there's a utility board of people that oversee each utility. Right. So that's the oversight there, and those are appointed typically by the mayor, I believe.
Right. As I got it from the commission office, that's under the mayor's direct office.
So I would campaign to put you on one of the boards. That'd be a good one.
I don't.
That's my solution to the problem.
No, that doesn't fix the problem. That just gets me to oversight.
Yeah, you might be. Well, your oversight might fix the problem.
Perhaps.
I really can't.
But the point is that it already exists.
Yeah, it does exist.
So it's I guess the question is that I don't know the answer to, and you might not know the answer either. Is it being effective in its purpose? Because at least on mine is a subset. Yeah. Mine's not that important, but the Hallsdale one being it doesn't feel like
that's been an issue for a while. I mean, I think we talked about. I want to say it was a month or two ago. We had a Republican meeting out that way, and I think I sat down with like 6 or 8 people from that area just talking, and it's been a real issue.
I mean, I have a toilet and a sink.
Yeah.
In the business.
Yes.
So my employees go to the bathroom, wash their hands. You know. Some of my customers do. We don't have. I mean, we have beer available if you guys want to come by, but we don't have a lot of customer use of the bathroom. It's literally my 4 or 5 employees throughout the day that may use it once or twice. Yeah. So hand washing, flushing toilets, and I'm talking $80 a month for just water.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down. I mean, my
baths, no showers. I'm not filling pools up.
My financial brain goes to, all right, how much does it actually cost them? Does it really cost them that much more to provide service to you in that area? That's the right. So I mean, there's a reason why it's that high, right? They're not just saying, well, let's just screw this group of people. By
comparison,
for no reason.
My household here with 4 people in it, bath, shower, dog, all that other stuff. I don't pay wastewater yet. That's going to happen, but I think my total water bill is like $25-$30.
Yeah, probably. It's. You would have to ask why to the KUB, like why there's such a discrepancy between the two.
Rowdy said hello, everybody. Somebody knocked on the door. That's why he's freaking out.
But I would imagine that there has to be some kind of, it costs just that much more to provide service to that area, and they have to provide service to that area, so they're
right. And again, like I can understand that there's a premise there.
I don't know if that's the real reason or not. I'm just saying, like the deductive reasoning is telling me this is why.
Right. But and I've heard that the Hallsdale has stated publicly that when they took it over, it was so out of date and so messed up that it's cost them a ton of money to get it back up and running.
And that's probably why it's higher. So they're trying to pay off the debt associated to it.
And again, I guess that's my problem with it, is I haven't felt like there's been a good conclusive answer.
Well, have you heard about the potential of internet from KUB?
Yeah, I have.
So if we are to do that, you might see $1 or $2 raise on your monthly bill from KUB, even though your consumption isn't any different, just so they can build out the infrastructure.
Right.
I think it's, nothing's for free kind of thing. And then it might really be the case that they had to rebuild the entire infrastructure up there, and they're just trying to pay for it by passing that expense on.
Right, but I would say, like, you don't get to, I mean, for a personal example, you don't add $3 to everybody's trash pickup because you want to buy a new truck.
No, but if the dump raises its rates and it costs me more to operate,
but
then that
would be equivalent. If we're running the equivalent, then that would be that TVAs change how much they're charging for water to go into the system.
Yeah, true. So I mean, but
I don't get to pass off.
I get what you're saying.
I don't buy a new fridge for my beer at the shop and then charge 25 cents more beer to pay off my fridge. I mean, I could.
Yeah, you could.
But that is poor customer service. That the customer doesn't give a shit whether my cooler's new or not. It just cares if it's cold.
If you look at my competitors, they actually do raise rate based on that.
This is not an ad. Stop it.
So we want to go down that road. Yes.
If
you want a nice stable bill, you can come over to my company and it won't be changing. But yes, I'm also a private owned business, and I think this might be a really good example, because you have these giant multi-billion-dollar corporations that are controlled by shareholders, and you have me, the local private guy. My prices don't change. Their prices fluctuate up and down. Anybody that has one of my competitors knows, like, you get environmental fees on there, you get fuel fees on there, all these different things, and your bill does up and down and fluctuate. So, it might just come down to a business model, and because they're not a true for-profit, this is how they pass along their expenses.
But the issue to me is that their business model doesn't get the scrutiny that yours does.
Correct.
Their business model has a permission that they can do their model the way they want to do their model. It doesn't matter whether the customer likes it or not, because you have to buy it.
That's the difference. Like with me, like, you're just gonna go somewhere else if you're not happy, which you should. With them, you don't have a choice.
Right.
So.
And again,
is it flawed? Yeah, that's why we have laws against monopolies in this country.
Right. And again, that's where I get into the what's this oversight board doing, and why isn't it at least clearly stated what is actually happening. And again, I don't know what the recourse is. If it's I don't know. It's just it's an interesting look into part of the system.
You should campaign to get put on one of the boards.
I don't want to be on these damn boards. I don't want to go sit and get yelled at for 6 hours by people that don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Which boards are we talking about?
I mean, at least that's what. I don't know. I've only been to a handful of commission meetings. I haven't done board meetings.
That's commission. That's different. We get yelled at for a living, but when you're on these, you're actually there to ask questions and
the
like
one
manage.
board that I've paid attention to has been very similar to the commission as of late, because it's the one that we just took apart, and they've gotten yelled at too, and got shit painted on their doors and others.
Yes, I mean if you've been in politics in 2020 and 2021, it's not been fun. I'll tell you that much. So. It's not the good old days.
I don't know. I wasn't paying that much attention in the good old days.
Well, I wasn't either. I wasn't even around yet.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't know. That's what's been fun to me, is like I get to be as blind and stupid as I want to be with this, because I don't have a history in it. It's literally, this is me going through the process of trying to get involved and trying to learn and trying to understand.
You've been doing
all these
great. I've been here with you since the beginning, and you're definitely a lot further along now than when you were then, and you're a lot more popular now than when you were then.
Yeah, we'll see.
You get some fangirls out there.
Yeah, trying to get somebody to pay me to do it so I can quit the day job and then I don't have to have as much scheduling problems.
There you go.
I don't know. You said a half hour to an hour and a half. We're right in the middle, so let's call it a show. Kyle, I appreciate it. I think I commend you for going through the process and for taking the heat and doing all that kind of stuff. My opinions on what you're doing and not is not that important as much as how you're going about what you're doing. I could at least sympathize with the idea of not being able to handle 700 emails a day.
It's not an excuse, but it's the reality right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, and so hopefully things cool off and go back to more of a normal life. Saying, all right, so the one thing I have to do, and I do it with everybody that's either city or that's an elected official of some sort. What am I missing? What have I not seen? What is getting zero coverage? That's getting buried by the Board of Health conversation that's been going on in commission that I haven't seen or heard about.
Well, we have the A.J. Johnson building coming up. We've got the stadium coming up. Those are the two big ones. The A.J. Johnson won't be as controversial as the stadium will be. I don't know how controversial the stadium will be at the end of the day. The thing is with the stadium
for us county people, we don't care. It's the city that's got to worry about it.
Yeah, and it really just comes down to how this is going to be financed, and we don't have the answers to that yet because it hasn't passed the state yet. So we're still kind of in limbo with what direction the stadium's going to go in, because if we can't get the money to do it, then it's not going to happen.
Right.
Basically.
And thanks to this show, I would argue that I'm one of the most educated people in town about how the financing is supposed to work
stadium?
if it works right. Yeah.
Okay. So,
I had Mammoth and the team in here.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah. I haven't met. I've met Mammoth in person now. Yeah, I've talked to him.
We're a fellow alum from Bearden High School. So
there you go.
Not really. I mean, he's like 20 years before me, but. I'll play the cards that I have to get the interview. So
I think besides those are the bigger items coming down. Budget season's coming up, so everybody always wants a raise, which is understandable. I mean,
I got 50 cents this year. That's my budget raise.
50 cents. I mean, that's good. That's good. I wish my boss would give me a raise. My boss sucks. But yeah, I think this is the big things. I mean, it's definitely been a wild freshman first half of my year. So we'll see how the second half goes.
I mean, shit. I mean, it can't get much crazier. I hope.
I hope not. If another pandemic comes, I might just quit.
Yeah. So that's the big stuff. Anything little, anything small, anything specifically that you have done other than this Board of Health thing that you feel like was important and has value and maybe it's been fully overlooked?
These last couple months, man, asking some good questions. I'm trying to think about all the things we passed over the last couple months, and that's been the bigger headline stuff. I think that's kind of been one of the bit disappointing things. We haven't, we did do a big thing about litter, and kind of got to the root problem of litter in our last meeting, because there has been an increase, and part of it is we haven't been able to sentence anybody to litter pickup. So we're used to having and. You need to ask Carson Daly about this because he knows a lot more than I do.
Yeah, that's what he got in trouble for, talking to a judge, having lunch with a judge about paper.
Yeah. So, I mean.
Yeah, it used to be you get a DUI, you pay a bunch of money, and then you go do community service, which includes
thousands of hours of litter pickup. And we haven't done any of that this year. So we have a litter pickup crew, but they're only so big. So, I think that's something that's been getting some attention lately. And
that's something we can spend pandemic money on.
And that should fall under the category. We talked about that the other day, and we asked for clarification if we could do it, because if we could do that, that'd be great. But that's another thing, we just don't have the clarification, because yes, we are not being able to pick up the litter that we used to be able to pick up because of the pandemic. So I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff that I'm not thinking off the top of my head that put me on the spot. But
for future reference, that has become one of my standard questions when I have somebody on.
Right,
I did it to Massey, I did it to Manus, I've done it to city council members and everybody. It's just because that's one of my complaints is there's so much stuff going on that we don't
even talk about,
and we don't talk about, and there's just no coverage of, and if and especially Board of Health item on the agenda makes the 2-3 hour meeting into a 7-8 hour meeting, and trying to sit through and watch the hours and hours and hours of public forum.
Well, we've done 14-16 hour stints at times, I think.
Yeah.
I think we did 2:30 in the morning twice. And we've done some marathons.
And good on you for getting for sitting through it, but good on for the community for getting out and doing their duty and getting.
I'm just looking forward to us getting back to normal, as close to normal as possible, and trying to get the top golfs in here and stadiums in here, and new museums in here, and all these great businesses that are coming in. We've got 2 Amazons coming to the area. I mean, we're really looking to have a great 20.
I go back and forth about how I feel about the Amazon situation.
Do you?
I mean, you got to think about. I mean, I get it. It exists. It's a company. They're doing their thing, and they're doing well, obviously.
Yeah.
But at the same time, cheaper, faster, easier makes it harder for local.
Yeah, you also get more jobs.
Comparable.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I get the local business aspect of it. Yes.
A local business is going to employ more people to sell the same amount of stuff as that Amazon facility taking over East Town.
I haven't been to a Walmart in 10 years, 12 years. Something like that, because I always try to shop local. So the title of this
episode is Kyle Ward Hates Walmart. You heard it here first.
Well, I just made a decision when I got older. I was like, I'm going to try to go as local as possible. I'm not going to lie, I do use Amazon. But I haven't been
Most of this room is bought by Amazon.
Yeah, which is, it's because it's hard to find some of these things on a local level. Things, But I try to do as much local as possible.
I mean, Guitar Center's awful, and it's expensive.
I've never go in there.
Well, I mean, most of this equipment would be available, or versions of it would be available there. And that's one of the things, is they don't have some of the specifics that I was shopping for. And pandemic shopping is a whole other mess.
Yeah.
But
it's true.
But so that's a concern of mine in the long front. And how much Amazon is damaged from that stupid boat in the Suez. But that's a whole different thing. All right, I will let you go about your day. I appreciate you coming in. Kyle Ward, everybody. We did it. We got him in here. We got a whole lot of Board of Health backstory, at least for those of you that give a shit. I don't know. Like I said, we're here to understand and get new stuff and try to keep up and learn new things about what's going on. My opinions aside, I really appreciate Kyle for taking the time today. I'm glad we got to work it out with both our schedules. We're Almost Agreement, almostagreement@gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. The website is up and live. The website is almostagreement.com. All the current episodes on there. I'm working through the backlog. If you prefer to go to YouTube, we're going to be adding a lot more video content to YouTube, as well as all the audios on there with just our logo picture. We're on all major podcast providers. Give us a like and share. Help us out. Tell your friends about us. I'm getting to the point where I can ask people and they feel like they can't say no when I tell them to come on the show. And so that's a top priority for me. So Almost Agreement, everybody. We appreciate you all coming on. Keep in touch. We'll talk to you soon.